And the first time I ever went out there, they didn't even know I'd come out because I got hit by a crazy set and I was in the channel basically spewing up my guts. I come pretty close to drown. I didn't want to let go of the camera. I took in a little bit of water, I think. Yeah.
Russell Ord, welcome to the Salt Sessions, mate. It's an honour to have you on here, and really appreciate you taking the time to do this. So, how's things?
Oh, I'm great, Scott. Thanks for having me. Take my hat off to you. It's a fair effort you've got going here, like keeping up podcasts and obviously doing your own photography.
Yeah, for sure, mate. No, it's amazing. It's just a great way to to meet guys like yourself and to get some insights for people that are listening. So, kicking that off, I imagine most people that have found this through me have probably heard of you or at least seen your photos. But just for those who don't know your story, I guess, how did you get a camera in your hand in the first place? And I guess on from that, like what kept it in your hand once you started?
Oh, I wasn't looking at getting in photography at all. It's basically come through an injury. It blew my knee out, and a mate had a spare camera, or his dad had a spare camera, and he just wanted me to take shots of him, like surfing. So instead of sitting on the couch and drinking beers, I picked up, took the camera down the beach and put some film in it and got all the slides back. That looked like a checkerboard. Black slides, white slides. It wasn't too much good exposure, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I just kind of got in through that injury, and then I still didn't really enjoy it because I love surfing more so. And it wasn't until I managed to borrow a water housing where I swam out in the morning and thought, this is actually pretty good feeling. Good, the feeling of photography sort of came on from there.
Yeah. So is that kind of just being amongst maybe the action, like surfing?
Yeah, no, I was shooting a lot of empties, and I was shooting surfing as well. Like I sort of started, it was like an apprenticeship for me. I started shooting the local board riders, and because I was part of the board riders, and just got into it like that. And then through those board riders, you've got like Jack Robinson and all the names, but it was mainly the old boys like Tom Innes and stuff like that. So I shot all those guys, and then as they progressed, I sort of progressed as well because I'd have a few happy snaps of them.
Yeah, cool. Was there any shots early on that you can remember that was sort of a moment where I guess you kind of had a look afterwards and you were like, oh, like maybe I can do this, or something that sort of almost like surprised you early on?
Not really, to be honest. I was pretty average. Like, it's easy to compare your own work. You pick up magazines and you just see the quality of work through the mags.
Yeah.
And I knew I was a long way off. Like, and plus, you're buying your own film and you didn't really blow shots. You weren't really taking risk. So it wasn't until probably a North Point session I had with Tom Innes again, where it was basically maxing out, that I got my first real shot I was pretty impressed with. And that's the first shot I actually sent to a magazine. That would have been 4 or 5 years into it.
Yeah, nice. Okay, sweet. And so being that you were primarily a surfer before that, was seeing like images, like when you were surfing before you picked up a camera, were you ever out surfing and kind of ever, like, did you see in that way? Could you kind of, conceive of photos? Were you ever out there surfing and thinking like, I could kind of see how this could be captured? Or was it just a complete, you were a surfer and then you picked up a camera and started?
Yeah, just a complete surfer. I didn't even look at things like that until I picked up a camera. The camera sort of taught me over the years to look at things differently, but it was, I was just a surfer. I still am. Like, I honestly would rather just surf and take photos.
Yeah. That's interesting, because I've answered a question similar to that, in that it's sort of, and I guess it's a famous photography quote that photography teaches you how to see. So has that, like, since that time, has that kind of eventuated on, like, throughout your life? Like maybe when you've gone traveling or just in certain ways, has it helped you, I guess, look at things in a different way or see details in things where maybe you might not have observed before?
Oh, well and truly, especially if you're like working for a magazine or you're doing a personal project, you look at things far differently. You might only, when you sort of, prior to that, I would just be taking everything for granted, and then I'd look at one thing. I wouldn't try to see different angles or anything like that. The camera definitely look at things in a different perspective for sure.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about maybe like those early days? You mentioned, like, there's a couple of things that come from your documentary that I want to kind of get into some details on. But one thing at the start talks about how before, you know, everyone had a camera and everyone had a jet ski, you were kind of out there by yourself for those moments before it became as crazy as it is now. So can you tell us a little bit about those times, like when you in your early days before social media, before all the craziness?
Yeah, well, it sort of evolved because I end up designing this water housing that you could fit like a 300 million film camera, and I paddled out to boat ramps, which is a wave, well, out here at Margs. It's a fair old paddle on a maxing out day to shoot pretty much the only tow team that we had back then. Thought I'd just be doing something different, and pretty much drowned when the closeout set hit me. I was so unprepared. I had the camera in a backpack and just went to the bottom. Like, you know, the backpack fills with water pretty quickly when you're sitting on your board.
Yeah.
And from that, I kind of just thought, to be able to do this, I'd need to get a ski to be able to join in. And that went on for years. Like, I wasn't the only one. There's, you know, a few others from around here. Jamie Scott had a boat. He was doing a bit of searching, but there wasn't many. And, you know, we'd run into each other very rarely. And it was just that started off, everything kind of evolved really quickly because you're shooting different slabs that you'd search for or found what you think you find. People have probably surfed them prior to that.
Yeah.
And the magazines were publishing everything. So it was quite handy. You actually thought you were killing it because it's everything was getting published at that time.
Okay.
It's just so saturated, it's been done to death.
Yeah.
Definitely. It wasn't until I got injured myself on the ski that I started focusing on other forms of how could I shoot this differently, because I've been doing it for years. And to be honest, it's easy. It was relatively easy.
How was it for the surfers, like the guys that you were shooting when you first got into it and you first, like, you know, created that housing and went out there? Were they, I'm assuming they'd been surfing those waves unphotographed like prior to that. So was that a pretty interesting experience for them to finally like see themselves in that form?
Well, those guys weren't really chasing slabs. They were just big wave surfers and incredible surfers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I ever went out there, they didn't even know I'd come out because I got hit by a crazy set and I was in the panel basically spewing up my guts. I come pretty close to drown. I didn't want to let go of the camera. I took in a little bit of water, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and then I'm sort of working with a lot of underground so-called surfers. So it took a long time to build trust because they are also searching for different waves as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, and then as you progressed, I mean, it's your quote in the doco, but you've mentioned that you're capturing moments and then you wanted to experience moments. So it was like you kind of realized that what you were doing was what everyone else was doing. So can you talk us through that process and how it was for you?
Yeah, that goes back on that injury I had. I was sitting in the doctor's surgery getting an X-ray on my leg because I broke it, and there was a magazine in there, and it had like the 10 best wildlife photographers of the year, like, and they go through their shots. Yep. And so I started from 10. I had plenty of time, you know, you're in the and it's never that quick when you're in the hospital. Yeah. And they were just going through all the moments and what they did to capture the shot. And I'd actually never, ever thought about that before. Never thought about the journey behind the image. But it wasn't until I got to number one and it had this shot of a Bengal tiger coming out of the water. And it was incredible. It was a Nat Geo magazine. So I don't know what they were thinking, but that particular shot, it was probably one of the better shots to look at compared to the other 9. But the guy took that in a zoo. And so I was just like, hang on, how does that work? Like, is the editor going through the backstories of these other guys who have been getting hypothermia, climbing up trees? Some took months to get the shot, where now this guy's probably just sitting with his 600 mil speed blur at some zoo. But not taken away from the shot, it was incredible, but that's exactly what I'd been doing for the prior 6 years to that. I felt like that guy in the zoo. I wasn't having any moments like, and you know what it's like yourself, you know, compared to swimming or the journey behind the image, there was no story behind my images. That's what I felt. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know, I had great times. I was finding waves. I was doing searching. I was driving around the ski in the middle of the ocean. But I felt like that guy in the zoo.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
for
all my
sure.
work that I'd looked at certainly became basic, and I wasn't having a moment of
Yeah.
my own, which as a surfer, that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure. Yeah.
have those moments.
So that's fascinating. I'm just going to jump ahead on a question like based on that. So the story through the doco is kind of like it sort of gets to that point, and then you talk about the shot that you want to go and get, swim into the impact zone. But equally at the same time, there was conversation around all of these guys suddenly now starting to come out into the lineup and get the same shot. So was there an element of like, well, obviously as someone who'd been out there, understand there would be frustration in just a bunch of new guys coming out and essentially pointing their camera at the thing that either you created or you might have organized with the surfers and understand all of that. But putting that aside for a second, is it the fact that that existed was then the thing that maybe pushed you to then, you know, go in closer because that was there? Like if you were still out there without them, do you think the next step would have happened?
I think so, just because of that article in the mag, that sort of pushed me at the start, and then it didn't take. And I was already getting super frustrated prior to that, but I hadn't actually worked out what the frustration was from. Like, was it because you know they're just getting a jet ski and they're coming out and they're shooting behind your shoulder and they're uploading it to social media straight away? I feel like they weren't having their own story behind their images. Like, it's like getting the golden ticket. Where's this spot? And someone writes a map for it, and you go and get an amazing photo. But if you actually had self-discovered that spot for yourself, gone through the efforts, I just feel like the photos just talk to you more. They're just, 100%, they mean a lot more.
100%, yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely a combination of the both. I mean, I haven't been down there for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, wow. No, it's fascinating.
Sorry, you go.
No, I was just saying it's fascinating because I really think that the biggest takeaway for me from that doco, like I think the most obvious story in the doco is that you went to get the shot and then you weren't happy with it, and then you went back a year later and got it, and that's the kind of the, you know, which is an amazing story in itself. But the biggest one for me was just really that in this space of like, you know, some people have sort of made complaints when it's gone from film to digital days or something, you know, things will evolve and change, and you can have been part of something beforehand and then just complain when things change. But it feels like you really took the attitude of, okay, well, this exists. It does suck, but I'm just going to go and be better than now. I'm going to like adapt to this current situation. Okay, everyone's got a camera and a jet ski now. They can all get into the same spot. So what am I going to do? I'm not going to sit here and whinge about it for too long. I'm going to go and be better and actually do something different and stay ahead. And I think that's like just a fascinating mindset. And it's like really inspirational part of like your journey. And that's the biggest thing I reckon I got from the doco.
Well, cheers for that. I did whinge a lot, to be honest, as well. But you have to find those moments on, and because in the end, if it wasn't for that, I might have not done it. Like you said, like you can go down and whinge, or you can go down and enjoy it. Like some guys are still going down there. They've been going down there for 10 years shooting exactly the same stuff. Yeah. I don't even know how they do it. I'd find it super boring. So I thank them for making me, you know, look outside the square. And that's happened a lot of times with work. You know, you go, I haven't been in the film days for like a Ted Grambo. Like imagine Ted's gone through. Yeah. Probably autofocus, film a whole lot, and he's just getting stronger and stronger. So, such an inspiration. So he's evolved with time, and we're all going to have to evolve again. Like, what's next? AI. Yeah. You got to evolve or you die. Yeah. No, it's fascinating. Yeah. Cool. So can you just talk to this concept of the dreamers versus doers? And just the background of that, like people may notice, I guess, like on this podcast, like I've never asked a question about gear or anything, because it's really like for me, it's really about the mindset behind the photographer and where they got to where they were and their journey and that kind of thing. And this dreamers versus doers concept seems to be one that, you know, comes up pretty strongly for you. So can you just give us your thoughts on it? Well, it's a saying from my grandmother, but it really does mean a lot to me. Like, I get it. I still get it now. I wish I could do this and I wish I could do that. I hear it all the time. And I just say, well, you could do it. Everyone can do it. But how quick they come up with excuses blows me away. So it's that kind of thing. So, like, you know, you've changed your life to do what you want to do. It's impressive.
It's
fascinating. Everybody can change.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because it's like in the documentary, it could be seen as, okay, well, dreaming versus doing is going swimming into, you know, giant waves at the right and taking photographs, which a lot of people might be scared of. But it's a concept for life in general, like you said, as simply as just changing a career, or like the amount of times I have someone reach out to me and just go, oh, how did you get into like full-time photography? And it's like, well, I just quit my job cold turkey and started doing it, and didn't have a plan B really, kind of thing. So it's like,
that's exactly right. You hear it with everything. I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. I remember being up north, and I was filling up with fuel on pretty much the last fuel station. We've got about 400 or 500 k's to go, and there was a guy there. And this is when I was young, so it sunk in pretty quick, where it was an old boy and he'd worked at Bunnings his whole life. And I always talk to these guys like he had the best setup, full drive, caravan, the whole lot. And I said to him, oh, where are you going? He said, I'm coming back. I've dreamt my whole life of doing this trip. And he's got as far as Broome, which is a fair way up. It's taken him about 2 weeks, and then his partner passed away. So his whole life, that was his dream.
Yep.
You know, I get emotional even thinking about it.
Yeah,
2
wow.
weeks into it, gone.
Far out, yeah. So
I was really like, holy shit, that's it.
Yeah.
You've got to have those wake up moments and listen to them. Fire brigade taught me heaps of those, and it took a while for that to sink in. Hence why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, if I wanted to be safe, well, fire brigade's not overly a safe job. I would have stayed there. Yeah. Good money. I love the job, but you only get one crack at it. So you might as well give it a go. Where do you think that's come from for you? Is it like from your parents, or is there anything from from you growing up? Like, where do you think that mentality has come from? Because I find it fascinating, like listening, like watching that doco and like reading a lot of your stuff and everything. It's almost like weirdly, I feel like if you weren't a surf photographer, like a lot of your stuff, you could be a motivational speaker in terms of it's the same stuff, but it feels like it's not stuff that you've read in a self-help book. It's just stuff that is in you or that you've lived. So do you have any sort of concept of maybe where that's come from? I've tried to think about it, because it is, I'm like, how am I like I am? And I think it's just evolved through being in the fire brigade and taking everything in over time. Yep. Like you get to see how quick life can end very quickly. And you can keep going to these incidents or accidents, whatever you want to call them, and just go through your whole life and try not to ever think about it. And that's what I was doing. But I had a couple of incidents where it really made me think. It's like one in particular where time just stood still, and I was just there doing my job and just started to reflect on my own life while at the same time watching this girl's end in front of me. So it's that kind of thing where you're like, it's quite amazing when you really think about it. If she had left the house 10 seconds later, she'd be alive, right? Yeah. And everybody's life around her as well has changed. Yep. And that probably happened, I don't know how many fatalities I've been to, a lot of car accidents, house fires, unfortunately a lot of suicides. But it was just that one in particular, and I was like, I'm just having a holy shit moment. Yeah. Yeah. And what in the end is like that guy that I talked about before. You can't, like, you're planning for something that might not ever occur. Yeah. So just do it. Yeah, for sure. I was talking to this about my wife the other day, like where we're at, because she's made sacrifice. Yeah. Like, she's been with a professional rugby league player and a firefighter who could provide income to the kids, to like grinding as a photographer. Grinding. Like, I could have kept on doing both and we could have been quite happy, but time, the thing you never get back. Yep. As a go. Yeah. And I still think I haven't even done that much. Like, I'm like, holy shit, what am I going to do next? Yeah. It's getting shorter and shorter.
It's fascinating. Me and my wife did it at the same time. So I used to have like a fairly, I mean, I guess you'd call it a stable job in like sales and marketing. And she was a school teacher, which is the stablest of all the jobs. And we both changed our careers at the same time. And now I'm a photographer and she's a Reiki healer of all things. So
Wow.
if you want unreliable incomes on an application, there's two of them in one go. But yeah, you work it out. We just made that call and we said, look, our life's going to shift a whole lot from two really good incomes to next to nothing and starting again. But the benefit that you get out of that from the joy of what you're doing and the creativity and sort of, feeling like you've got a purpose to where you're going is just outweighs it so much more.
Oh, well and truly. You can go through the motions your whole life and then it's over.
Yeah.
You're like, shit, I should have done this. That's what the saying is. I should have, would have, could have, basically. Like even just having the gallery, I've met people come in here and I'd love to do this. I said, hey, you can do this.
Yeah.
Anybody. What do you want to do?
Mm.
And I try to instill that in my kids as well. Like it's just go for it.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't work, change.
Yeah, exactly.
Change again.
Yep, exactly. Well, that was our thing as well. It was like, well, we'll just try it. If not, then, we move back to something else. But I guess initially it's probably, I find it's the trade-offs. A lot of the conversations I have with people about it initially is the fear of that trade-off that I might not have the same security as I had before, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess everyone's situation's different. Like some people have got kids, so it's a different scenario. Like we don't, so it makes those risks maybe a little bit easier in terms of we're only affecting ourselves. But I think it's still there. I mean, you're complete proof of that because you had 3 kids. You got 3 kids, don't you? So like you were doing it,
kids,
in that exact. Yeah. So
the last 10 years has all been photography. So I've just survived on that. Obviously, I was lucky. It wasn't like I was. One day I thought I could pick up a camera and make a living. I had an apprenticeship and I was doing things.
Yep.
So it was I was lucky to be able to combine the both. And then one day you give it up and you halve your wage and halve your wage and halve your wage.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I've had some pretty good experience and met some amazing people, which is
100%. Yeah. So if that's the what we've been talking about kind of is in the, you're willing to do this as a career, then there's another stage, which is, what we briefly spoke about and what the doco's about, where you're willing to take that next step in terms of, swimming in closer to get that shot. And then for people, I mean, I'm assuming most people should have seen the documentary. If they haven't, they should definitely watch it. I'll link it below. But essentially, the short story of it is that you take a shot that you're not happy with, and then a year later, you go back again and do it. So what's that in you? Like, where do you think like that comes from? Because that's sort of an extra level. There's one level of saying, hey, I'm going to just, be a photographer. And that's this dreaming versus doing thing. But there must be something else in you that's pushing you to that next limit kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm always trying to push myself. I did it when I was playing league. You even though it was in West Australia, you get, you're too small, you're too slow sort of thing. And I've always, that could have had that drive in me for sure. But it's just, and I feel like I'm not jumping massive amount of gaps either, like swimming out. It wasn't really about a shot that I didn't get. It was just shooting the same stuff. And then in particular, I wanted to get a photo at the right, that I could push myself in. But I didn't jump massive amounts of, it'd be like starting up boxing and then wanting to fight Mike Tyson. It doesn't happen. You've got to build up to it. And I felt like I was pretty close to that level anyway. I surf pretty decent waves and, I can swim in really decent spots as well. Like after that doco come out, I actually had a lot of messages was like, I'd love to go and do that. And I'm like, you guys don't need to shoot 2 foot beachy. I'm not saying you couldn't do it.
Yeah, of course.
I take my hat off to them. But they want to it's nearly like instant famous again. Yeah. There was a lot of effort went into that shot. A lot of breath hold. I went on courses, equipment, the whole lot. And plus I'd had 30 plus years of ocean experience.
Well, yeah, I've heard you talk about this before in terms of risk versus preparation. Like a lot of people will watch that documentary and talk about risk or be like, oh, that guy's crazy or something like that. You know what I mean? There'll be these things that are sort of thrown out there which don't take into account everything that you're talking about. So like in your mind, well, I guess when you're in the ocean, there's always risk involved. You're sort of saying that you've had a lot of preparation for that. So it's not as risky, quote unquote, as maybe it appears to a casual observer.
Oh, well and truly. Like, well, I've run a few surf apnea courses with Shannon Worrell from Shark Eyes, and it's all about that. It's just building up for that moment. And you have different people have different levels, like first time ocean goers to like big wave Daves. It's just knowing your capabilities.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Like I've seen it down at the right over the years where guys have started surfing and they're half decent, and then all of a sudden they've gone from surfing 6 foot slabs to 20 foot right because they've got the jet ski. They've done no preparation, and I've even tried a few of these guys and they couldn't hold their breath for 30 seconds. So when it all goes wrong, it goes horribly wrong.
Sure. And do you think that's happening?
It's got to build up.
Do you think that's happening in the surf photography space as well, with the increase of social media and people, I guess, seeing shots or wanting to get, the next shot or something like that? Like, are people, essentially maybe putting themselves too much at risk for, an instant outcome? Yeah,
like would they do it if no one could see it? I don't think they would. There's been a few instances. I won't call them out. I've actually reached out to them and said, like, why would you be doing that? Like, think about the prep. I take my hat off to giving it a go, but sort of build up to it, because in the end, there's some horrible outcomes if that goes wrong, and it happens. It's happened with surfers for sure. So much. Probably not so much with photographers. I don't really know what's going on at the moment. So I've been out there a little bit, but it's as long as they build up to it, for sure. I mean, I doing that doco, I didn't really want to make sure people just to go out of their comfort zone and well and truly out of their comfort zone. You got to come through the hoops for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So in saying that, like with your photography, because since the advent of social media and all of this stuff, have you ever felt any pressure to create work? Or has your surf stuff more been like personal stuff, which means you can, apply all of your current mentality to that in terms of, just getting the shots that you want to get, that kind of thing. Has that been a factor, since you've just become a full-time photographer?
Yeah, kind of two things. If it's a personal project, I'll just take my time and get the shots that I want to do. But if it is for a client, surf-based client, I'm always like, I love to swim because I get the feeling of the ocean. So, but I'll do everything then, like the whole lot, the whole package. And but as money-wise and as a business, it's pretty limited, the surf photography. I don't, who's making money out of surf photography these days?
Yeah. Yeah.
Must be doing all right.
Yeah.
It is a tough one, and they would have had to evolve as well, for sure. But it is a very small part of what I do. I probably spend half the time doing it, but it's probably equates for 10 or 15% of the income.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So you've never really felt any pressure to create in terms of the social media world, like to sort of continue to have some kind of content, or is it just, you just put out what you shoot and? Yeah, no, I'm never creating for social media. I could not give a rat's. Like it's not a thing. Most of my social media stuff I've taken could be 10 years ago. I don't feel pressure, but I'm probably keeping up with the Joneses about putting anything up, really. I put a little bit up here and there, but it's no, I'm definitely not going to shoot for social media, because social media doesn't pay my wages or my bills, and it's time consuming. And I always think, imagine like I finish this journey or whatever that may be in years to come. I'm 65 or 70 sitting in a chair thinking about your career and how much time you've spent on your phone on social media. You'd be like kicking yourself. Really, like people spend hours on it. Like that's
even now I'm like, Christ, I could have learned 20 languages or something.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
I had way more experiences.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're exactly right.
Like, and it'll die. It'll be like anything. There'll be a death of Instagram, and there'll be a death of something else, and there'll be something else come up. And it's just it's a weird world.
Yeah.
Catch 22.
So is there what's your, like, I guess, surf photography career been beyond like what people can just see through the doco? Because obviously if people are just watching that, then they're seeing you just shooting big waves, big slab waves. They're seeing the time between, you know, the first photo, the second photo, that kind of thing. Is there any time between that where you're shooting a different type of surfing? Are you shooting ever for magazines? Are you shooting particular like surfers?
Yeah, the magazine thing's pretty much stopped. The occasional job comes up now and then brand work, and I get super inspired by people's stories. So I love shooting that more so. The story behind the journey, but the big wave stuff's that's just like a 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
And I've probably hammered that over the years, and that's probably all I'm known for. But you know, I just love going out and meeting people. If you're traveling when you're surfing, it's just allowed you to meet so many different crew.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a story if you're willing to take time to listen to it, and that's where I find the inspiration for sure.
100%. And did I see? Are you sort of, is that part of your work these days? Are you kind of doing some stuff like that along, like, I guess, more documenting kind of stuff, a bit of environmental documentation?
Yeah, I do a lot of that, but we've also got a foundation. So I started working for a mate that had a music foundation, and he wanted me to document what he does. Obviously, they need to get funding and things like that. And so he's introducing music to, and this is the same concept for me now, introducing music to kids that never have access through, you know, finance. They live remote communities, or they're mentally or physically disabilities and stuff like that. So on that journey, I started, you always have a kid that's a straggler, and teaching them photography on the side while I was doing a job. And that went on and off for 5 or 6 years. And then he just turned around and said, look, you've got something going here. You could be teaching these kids photography through your own foundation. How about it? And it's something I really enjoy. Like,
awesome.
It's I'll go and do a surf shoot, and it could be like 10-foot pump and north. So if I get home, I'm not even talking about it to my wife or anything. But you do a job with these kids, because you can change lives. Like the surf photography is not changing lives.
Yeah.
Whereas you go into these schools, and some of these kids start to life it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It puts everything in perspective real quick, and being able to work with them. And the photography is just a thing on the side. They love it, and some of them are really good at it too.
Yeah.
So, I get a lot out of it. I think I get more out of it than the kids, for sure.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. That's amazing. And you've got a gallery now, did I hear?
Yeah, got a gallery. It's it's quiet at the moment for sure. It's just the rain has just come in and set in, but good. It's only been open for 2 months, and that it's on Edwards Winery in March. And Christo Edwards, I seen him out in the surf. I surf with him in the mornings, and he said to me, "Oh, would you like to convert this old shed? It's a big shed. It's like an aeroplane hangar actually into a gallery." And I said no. But I live in a small house in the bush, so I needed an office, and I'd kind of budgeted for an office, and then they're looking after me for sure. So it's one of those things. We're just going to go for it, and see what happens.
Yeah, amazing.
It's a beautiful space. We'll probably evolve it into having a few, like a full photography gallery, and having sort of experiences. Like I seen Ted was doing a talk in Vico, so I reached out to Ted. I'm like, next time you're in W Marks, we'll put something on here. So I want to start doing that for others as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. So how much sort of new ocean work are you shooting these days?
I'm shooting a little bit, because I'm doing a book for a publisher on like surfing and the surfing lifestyle. They reached out about 2 or 3 years ago, and I've been working on it. So it's people's lives that revolve around the sea. And I said no at the start because I thought there'd be so many stipulations, but I can do whatever I want. So I've just been over in Byron working with a few crew, and it's just a way to meet people.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. So hopefully that'll come out. It won't come out until the end of next year.
Yep.
So that's the only. I normally have a personal project going all the time.
Yep.
So this has just fallen into that, even though it's like a little bit of work.
Yeah. So are you?
Yeah.
Like, do you chase like swells anymore, or are you kind of just sort of progressed, along to this stuff now?
Yeah, no, I'm not chasing swells. Like, unless there's something super interesting, or I could do. I had a couple of shots in my head that I wanted to work on, and I was going pretty bloody hard to be able to do it, because it's kind of like on the same level as the ride. I won't name the spots because
no, of course, yeah.
I mean, they're well known, but I just think, and then I just got injured, so I did my shoulder. Been out of the water for about 1.5 years.
Yeah, wow.
On surgery, so it was just like, it just put me on the back seat, and then it's like, yeah, can I do it without really getting completely stuffed or injured? I just can't afford to get injured. For sure. So no, I'm not really chasing the swells, and I don't get that feeling like I'm missing out. Like, if I'm chasing something, it'll be something personal. Like I see a lot of guys that, like we were saying before, that they're just shooting the same old stuff. I mean, I take my hat off them how excited they get about doing it. Like I would find it completely boring because I've already done it. Like if I'm going to go and do something, I want to do it differently.
Yeah, for sure. In your wave shooting days outside of the ride, like where's been, I guess, that you can name, where's been like one of your like favorite or most interesting waves to shoot?
Well, I like the Cyclops region for sure. Like exploring around there.
Yeah.
Just remote, it's beautiful water. And I'm probably going to head down the coast this weekend actually, and just have a look. I'm still looking for things. I just call everything Cyclops though.
Yeah.
So,
That's fine. Yeah.
I mean, it's like I used to shoot, and I've got some beautiful shots all panned back and more landscape based, but I'd never showcase them.
Yeah.
What about? I don't want to make it too easy for photographers, and then the surfers from that area as well can get super frustrated. But I'm just trying to find weird bits of water at the moment.
Yeah. What about because I always find it fascinating, because realistically, like in terms of the ride, there's only, even if there's heaps of people out there that there never used to be, there's still a very small amount of people in relation to people that have ever witnessed it and experienced it. So have you shot any of like the waves overseas, like the Tahitis or the pipelines or anything like that as a way of comparison?
Oh yeah, I've shot pipe, I've shot Tahiti. Chokes I've swam chokes on like a tow day.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably, back then it was a tow day. And that's I find that scarier.
Okay.
At the right, it's all about breath hold.
Yeah.
Really. Like you're getting a hold down, and it's scary. It's kind of sharky scary as well. But consequences are something you can kind of train for. Like you can train to keep calm in those situations. Whereas Tahiti, I just feel like I just can't get out of my head that I'm going to go over the falls and just get pinballed on the bottom.
Yeah.
It's a scary spot.
Yeah.
But it's, on a tow day, like I've obviously shot wide and stuff on like a paddle day, and it's been really fun. And Dom from over in Tahiti's just a he's an absolute legend. I love Dom. So
I might have to get you to hook us up. I've DM'd him about 5 times for this podcast, and I haven't heard back from him. So I don't know how good the internet is over there as well.
It depends what he's doing, but I'll hook you up for sure. He's a great guy. He's got some classic stories.
Yeah, nice.
Then pipe wise, it's the same kind of thing. I've swam backdoor on a pretty solid day, like 8 to 10 foot day, and it's I've got a few little tricks that I do to semi-keep safe, but it's the same thing. The consequences is you're getting, obviously you got to do a breath hold as well because you're going under, but you are getting bounced. So when you see a shot from those sort of places, like I'll see the occasional photo at times and I'll reach out to the photographer like, oh God, I wish that was in my portfolio because I just know exactly what went in to get it.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, but there's a lot of power at the right for sure. But I'm still worried about the breath hold there.
Yeah. Well, on the breath hold stuff, it's interesting that you mentioned that because it's fascinating in the doco when you're doing the final bit of the sort of breath hold training, you're in that really still water. And the guy who's training you sort of mentioned something along the lines of like, this is the point where you can't force it. Like, it doesn't matter how much you want it at this point. This is the point where you got to let go and just, give into the thing and just, So is that something that then, like, post learning that or still like doing it now, is that just something that not only in the ocean, but just can help you just in life in general?
Oh yeah, like we're training the surf apnea. It's that good. Like just like we do a couple of corporate talks, and I'm doing a full breathe up prior because I'm like I'd rather swim the right any day of the week than do
Public speaking. 100%.
That's scary, but yeah, definitely like this. What you're talking about there with the statics, like my mind wanders a lot. Like doing the statics, it's just like you're down and the mind just is going nuts. So you're just coming up with different ways to be able to focus is good.
Yep.
Like we call them positive mental anchors. So everyone, when you're doing like a apnea or doing a breath hold, you need to be able to focus on something else instead of saying, shit, I need to breathe. Because you actually don't. There's heaps of O2 in your system.
Yeah.
It's the CO2 forcing you to breathe and your mind going, I need to breathe, I need to breathe. Whereas if you can focus on something that might be visual or acoustic or feeling, you can get through that a lot easier. So I did an instructor's course with Jason from Apnea Survival last year in Queensland. And the way I do a static, I basically listened for sounds and put pictures to it, and it was perfect. Because it's not a time thing, but you had to do a time to become a qualified instructor. Yeah. And hearing all those noises in the pool in the Gold Coast, I was just putting pictures and just going to a different world, and all of a sudden you get the time.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. Like, have you implemented that since learning that in other forms, like through just general like meditation or anything in life, or is it more just the water stuff?
No, I use it all the time in the water, and I definitely use it when I'm driving on the freeway up to Perth. Like different techniques. So I don't crack the shits. Yeah. But it's, I'm not a huge meditator. I like to do this, what I call 10-minute meditations. It's not even 10 minutes. It's basically just being aware of what you're doing. Like I could do it right now, sitting in the seat and feeling the seat on my back, and it kind of just brings you into the now, and then you focus on the breath.
Yep.
Yeah, just breathing properly. I always catch myself breathing like into the chest and stuff, and I'm fascinated about the breathing techniques that you can do to keep calm.
Yeah. Have you done any of the breath work stuff, like not holding, not underwater, but some of the, the more like, I guess, Wim Hof style breath work?
Yeah, I've done a course with Wim. Yep. Not with Wim, but a Wim Hof course, and it's amazing. Like it's it feels that good. But if I'm saying that, I did catch a guy doing Wim Hof, doing some pool training the other day, and I mentioned to him you probably wouldn't want to do that, and because when you're doing a breath hold, you need to go through the stages of breath hold and know those stages of breath hold. So you'll swallow, you might get diaphragmatic contractions and stuff like that. You need to, but when you're doing a Wim Hof, you're basically purging the CO2 and you're not going through the stages. So if you're running along the bottom of a pool, you could be feeling great. Yeah. And then it's lights out.
Yeah.
No one there.
Yeah.
That's the end of life because you've just done a Wim Hof.
Yeah.
If I do a Wim Hof and do a breath hold, I can do it for 4 or 5 minutes on an exhale. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's fascinating. Yeah.
You definitely don't want to be doing that in the
No,
water.
not in the water for sure.
On the couch watching the footy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just a quick random question that I kind of thought of. So in the doco, you know that like the first photo that you took that then was out of focus or you weren't happy with it.
Yeah.
Did you keep that? Like, do you still
Yeah,
have that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was just fascinated whether it was whether it was deleted in frustration or whether you kept it as sort of motivation or if it just there's really no emotion attached to it.
No, there's definitely a lot of emotion attached to it because it was just a complete stuff up as well on my behalf. Like back in the day, you used to tape up the lens so it couldn't move.
Yep.
And I need that camera prior and I would have hit something and it just put it out of focus. But I actually put that one up and put it on my wall in my office at the time. I haven't got it now. Blown up. I don't know where I don't actually where that shot is, but I still got the shot for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Just because you do all that preparation and you didn't cross the T's or dot the I's properly in the end. I could have just had that shot and pretty much got it. It was a pretty decent photo.
Yeah.
I'd gone not over the falls, but I took one on the head just prior to that, and I'd need the back of the camera. And it was on manual focus, but you know you can back focus as well. I reckon I hit that.
Yeah.
And I didn't need to do it because I only really use that sort of settings in like Tahiti water or clear water where you're shooting. I wasn't even shooting underwater then anyway, so I didn't need to have it.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And so just on that then, say like the next shot that you did get that you nailed or like any of your shots, like what is it that in a sequence of photos, like what are you kind of looking for like to be that moment? And then say on that shot, for example, like the shot of the movie, there must have been like some frames before or after that. Do they ever get used for anything? Or is it just literally there's one moment that's the best one and then that's it?
No, I've got heaps of good stuff from there, like some really moments, but the one in particular I was trying to get was trying to be in the barrel and seeing right through to the other side. So you had that happens occasionally.
Yeah.
And so I was just waiting for the shot itself. It's decent. It's not like if you put it up against other photos from there, someone shooting with a 7200 or whatever it is.
Yep.
And people don't know about photography. My shots get blown out of the water. It's not actually, it makes 10, 20-foot waves look small.
Yeah.
I can look at it and I can see the journey that goes behind it. So that's why it's so special. But I've got a lot of good moments, like bigger waves than that, way bigger, where you're looking down into the barrel, but you're not far enough down to look through the barrel.
Yeah.
So that's all that moment was in
there. No, it's got the story behind it. Fascinating. So then just with like your plans for the future, when you were kind enough a couple of years ago to answer some questions for me in a written interview, and your answer to what's something that you want to do, I'll just read it out, was one camera, one lens, a water housing, a backpack, no agendas, no expectations, to travel around Peru and beyond with my wife and see what happens. Now this was just before COVID hit the world, so I'm imagining maybe that hasn't happened yet, but is that still on the agenda, or do you have any other plans like that for the future?
That sounds awesome, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks for that reminder.
It was your dream.
That's good. Yeah, I'd love to do that for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, just pack really lightly, like a Mickey Smith. You know Mickey Smith from Ireland?
Oh yes, yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
That's where that inspiration comes from. Because Mickey, I actually met him over here, and he came over with a bunch of Irish guys that paddled out to the left and another wave, and I seen him, like he swam the right way back in the day.
Yeah.
Just 50 mil, but Mickey used to travel with one water housing.
Yeah.
Back then it was a Canon, I think, film camera and 50 mil. That's it. And he would create.
Yep.
You know, I go overboard and like, oh, I need this, I need that. Hard to use all of them.
Yep.
So yeah, just pack light and travel and meet crew for sure.
I was going to say, like now with the sort of the stuff that you're doing, would it be something that like traveling and maybe documenting some stuff along the way?
Well, I'm documenting a lot of the travels I'm doing through the foundation because a lot of them are quite remote.
Okay.
I just done a trip on the Tanami Desert with Quinn Beardman from the Foundation. We're trying to figure out how we can incorporate more schools, because it's so expensive to do what we do.
Yep.
We might as well see if we can do 5 or 6 schools in one hit, one trip.
Yep.
It's so remote. It's such a, like, there's hours and hours of driving on like corrugated roads and roads you could easily get bogged in. So it might have to be a breakup trips, but I document all that. Should probably put a little bit more of it up. I don't put a lot up of the kids. We do have a foundation website. I put a little bit up, but those experiences are amazing. And then recently I've just been up to Warman, which is a couple of hours inland from Kununurra. We got asked to come up by the school there that I've been working at for 3 years, and they had what they call a Jumba, a celebration. And they were celebrating Gija, their language. They had a dictionary come out. Normally I wouldn't do anything like that, because I want to be able to help the kids, and I thought I might have a couple of kids help me document the Jumba, but they're all in it, so it's good. But I got to take my son, one of my sons, Tavian. He's been doing video work since he was like 8 quarter. That's the first time he's had that sort of experience, and it's it's so good. Like being able to, you're meeting incredible people that have got a lot of stories of hardship. I guess, like I was saying before, the harder someone's life they've had and they've made something of it, pretty much the more, it's just mind-boggling how they've done it. Like, here's someone that has become a doctor, and they've been born out here, and they've had this hardship. And hats off to them. It's
fascinating. Puts a lot of our day-to-day things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're doing nothing. It feels like nothing when you meet those crew.
Wow. Cool. And just to finish it up, just back on the surf photography for a minute. There's a quote in the doco that says, "The secret to good surf photography is doing something no one else is doing." It's not your quote, but it's in the documentary. So do you have any thoughts on maybe what that is now in the current state?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Like, it feels like it's been done to death, but there's someone always comes up with something. I haven't come up with something new for a while, that's for sure. But you could, like, I get maybe inspired by someone like a Trent Mitchell. Like, Trent's always coming up with weird and wonderful things. I love his work. I'd speak to Trent now and then. He's quite inspirational, but I think it's more for me now that goes back to people having their journey behind their image and creating their own journey instead of, like we said before, instead of getting the golden ticket. Like if you were to come over here, and if you've never been down the coast, like you could ring me up and let's go and shoot, and I get this all the time, and I'd probably say no, for sure. But if you come over and you hired a four-wheel drive, or you got something and you went and explored, and you found, like, you could find Cyclops for the first time ever. It's your find. Then I'll go and shoot with you for sure. If you've gone through those efforts, it's amazing. I love it. Whereas I find 99.9% of photographers want the golden ticket because it needs to go on Instagram, or then they're doing a print store. They haven't really actually done anything. And in the end, the images are incredible. It's beautiful. But what's the story behind it?
100%. Mate, that's a amazing way to end it. So, just want to say, again, thank you so much for your time. This is like, talking to you is one that, like, this podcast, as I said before, like the stories behind it and the motivation and the mindset is really what I want to get through to, like, in these conversations in this podcast. And I don't think there's anyone better than you with the career you've had and the way you've evolved throughout of it, even to now, like, your earlier story and what we were saying before about how, you had a situation and then you pushed it a little bit further, but now to even be on saying, you might have done your time with that, and now you're going on to start and telling these stories and documenting. It's just this constant evolution that's keeping you motivated. And it's really inspiring to listen to. So thanks so much for your time.
No, thanks for having me. Like I said at the start, taking my hat off to you, what you're doing for sure. And I love how you and your wife are going for it.
Awesome. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.